Step aboard, dear reader, and let the story begin. Imagine, if you will, a world unlike our own, an era of gilded opulence and remarkable ambition, a time when the promise of progress, the whisper of adventure, and the shimmer of possibility filled the air. You find yourself on the cusp of history, not merely as a spectator, but as a fellow traveler in a grand, uncertain journey. The year is 1912, and before you lies a marvel of human ingenuity, the greatest ship ever built, RMS Titanic. I invite you now to let go of the images you may have seen, or the stories you've heard. Put aside the knowledge of her fateful end. For this, dear reader, is not a tale of disaster, but one of wonder, a journey through time and space, across oceans and dreams. This is the Titanic before the iceberg, before the night that would rewrite the world's history, before her legendary sinking. This is Titanic in her prime, at the pinnacle of luxury and design, her maiden voyage a ship of dreams, gleaming with promise. Come, step with me through the grand entrance, where the ship's vast corridors unfold before your eyes like a world unto itself. There is no feeling quite like the one you'll experience as you step aboard Titanic for the first time. The air hums with the sound of orchestras warming up in the distant dining salons, the gentle clink of fine china, the soft rustle of silk gowns brushing marble floors. It's a world of refinement, luxury, and exclusivity. The ship itself is an embodiment of human aspiration, strong, unyielding, yet graceful in its sweeping lines and elegant proportions. As you pass through the main entrance hall, a feeling of awe is hard to escape. The light from the chandeliers falls like liquid gold across the polished floors. You can almost hear the whispers of passengers on their way to grand dinners, eagerly discussing the wonders they've experienced on their voyage across the Atlantic. People from all walks of life, drawn together by a shared desire for adventure, relaxation, and the promise of new beginnings. And though their stories differ, in this moment, on this ship, they are united. This is Titanic, where the world's elite come together, where fortunes are displayed in glittering jewelry and silk evening gowns, where dreams are shared over champagne and laughter, and where lives change forever as the ship sails towards the distant horizon. I invite you to stay with me as we journey deeper into the world aboard Titanic. You will meet the passengers, the wealthy, the ambitious, the broken-hearted, and the dreamers. You will be invited into their lives, their stories unfolding quietly in corners of the ship, in grand ballrooms, on the decks under the stars. For though Titanic was a marvel of engineering, it was also a stage for humanity, a place where lives collided, hearts intertwined, and destinies were shaped. There is, of course, a sense of wonder that comes with traveling aboard a ship of such grandeur. Every surface shines with the gleam of polished wood. Every room is filled with the scent of fresh flowers and freshly polished silver. Every meal, a feast of extraordinary proportions, served with the precision of a carefully choreographed performance. But beneath this sheen of perfection, there are whispers of secrets, of intrigues, of ambitions that run deeper than the ocean itself. And it is through these whispered conversations that we will come to know the true heart of Titanic, not just as a ship, but as a gathering of souls with desires, fears, and aspirations. We will watch as relationships unfold, and people reveal themselves in the quiet moments between dinner parties, in the lounges, and on the promenade deck. Every laugh shared is a story. Every glance exchanged a secret. You will witness the grand celebrations, the formal dinners where plates of oysters and roasted duckling are served alongside the finest wines, where the orchestra plays selections from The Merry Widow, and the soft strains of violins fill the air. But you will also find yourself in the quiet moments. The stillness of the ship at night, the hum of the engines beneath your feet as you take a solitary walk on deck, the vastness of the ocean stretching endlessly before you, and the stars above reminding you of your small place in this world. As we sail toward the horizon, I encourage you to take a seat in the grand dining salon and share a meal with me. Let the glasses of champagne clink in celebration of new beginnings. Let the conversation flow effortlessly as you settle into the rhythms of this floating world. And then, when the evening is at its most elegant, I invite you to dance, to lose yourself in the waltz as the orchestra plays a tune that's both familiar and new. The night stretches ahead, filled with promise. But there are, as I'm sure you've guessed, many layers to this journey. As much as Titanic was a triumph of luxury and refinement, it was also a reflection of the complex social structure of the time. The ship was a microcosm of the world outside, where wealth, class, and social expectations created both a sense of belonging and isolation. As we move through the ship, you will notice the distinction between first class, where the wealthiest and most influential passengers dine and dance, and the lower decks, where the hard-working crew keep the ship running. You will hear the murmur of voices from the third-class passengers, their own dreams and hopes for a better future crossing with the currents of the Atlantic. At the same time, you will witness the beauty of the ocean, the vast, infinite expanse that seems to stretch on forever. In the distance, the horizon remains always just out of reach. And for the passengers aboard, there's a sense of waiting, of anticipation. What lies beyond the horizon? What awaits them in the land they are sailing toward? Whether they are seeking new opportunities, escaping past misfortunes, or simply enjoying the adventure, their eyes are turned westward, toward a new world, toward New York. And then there are the quiet moments. The moments when the ship feels less like a grand hotel and more like a floating world all its own. It is in these moments that you will see the true beauty of Titanic, not just the marble floors and the shimmering chandeliers, but the small, intimate moments that pass unnoticed by the masses. The quiet strolls on the deck at sunset, the whispered confessions between friends, the stolen glances of new lovers. These moments, too, are Titanic, for they exist beyond the glitz and glamour. They speak to the heart of what it means to be human, to connect, to love, to hope. As you walk alongside me through the ship's grand hallways and take in the sights, sounds, and emotions of this world, I ask you to remember that Titanic, for all her grandeur, was also a fleeting moment in time, a brief moment where the stars aligned, where dreams were woven into reality, and where everything seemed possible. For those aboard, this ship was not just a vessel, it was a symbol of their hopes, their futures, and their place in a world that was changing rapidly around them. So, I ask you once more, come aboard, dear reader. Let us share this journey together. We'll walk the decks, meet the passengers, and witness the quiet beauty of life aboard this majestic ship. We will be swept away by the romance of the ocean, the luxury of Titanic, and the promises of a new world. But I promise you this, there is more to this journey than meets the eye. For as we sail westward, we are all, in a way, moving toward the unknown. The horizon beckons, but it is not the only mystery we will encounter. You may find that you are more than just a spectator in this story. You may, in time, find yourself aboard Titanic, alongside the characters you meet. The ship may become a world within itself, and for a brief time, you will live and breathe the air of this remarkable voyage. We will share these moments together, moments that will stay with you long after the voyage ends. And so, I bid you, step aboard and let the story unfold. As Titanic sails into the unknown, so too will we journey deeper into the world of its passengers. The adventure begins now, and I am delighted to have you with me. As the day settles into evening, you find yourself drifting through the grand, bustling corridors of Titanic, the gleaming lights of the chandeliers above casting their warm glow on the polished wood floors. The ship is alive with activity, the soft hum of conversation, the clinking of fine china, the rustle of silk dresses as ladies move in graceful procession, escorted by gentlemen in sharp black tuxedos. Everywhere you look, there is elegance. And yet, there is a sense of something more, something deeper, as if the grand ship is not just a mode of transportation but a microcosm of the world itself, a reflection of society's desires and dreams, with all its intricacies and contradictions. As you move through the space, it's impossible to ignore the sense of awe that permeates the atmosphere. You pass the reception hall, where guests gather before dinner, laughing and talking, their faces glowing with excitement and anticipation. The orchestra plays light classical tunes from one corner, a subtle but sophisticated backdrop to the lively chatter of passengers from all walks of life. Some of them are familiar faces, members of the wealthy elite, their names whispered in high society circles. Others are newcomers, adventurers, and dreamers, all drawn together by this single vessel, crossing the Atlantic in the lap of luxury. You find yourself drawn to the rail, gazing out at the dark expanse of the sea. The horizon stretches far beyond what the eye can see, an endless expanse of water that seems to go on forever. It is a strange feeling, being suspended between two worlds, one the bustling life aboard the ship, the other the silent, eternal ocean. You are keenly aware of the vastness that surrounds you, of the immensity of the world outside the ship's steel frame, and yet there is a comfort in the knowledge that you are here, among these people, on this magnificent journey, together. The ocean, the ship, and its passengers are bound in this shared moment, traveling toward an unknown future. A gentle breeze whispers across the deck, carrying the scent of salt and the fresh, cold air of the open sea. You pull your coat a little tighter around you as the evening grows cooler, but it doesn't matter. There is something magical about this moment, something that makes you feel alive. The movement of the ship is barely perceptible, just a gentle sway that lulls you into a sense of serenity. As you stand there, lost in thought, you hear footsteps approaching behind you. Turning, you see Maggie walking toward you, her dark green satin gown flowing gracefully as she moves, her hair styled in soft waves that catch the light. She smiles as she approaches, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the lanterns hanging overhead. "It's beautiful out here," she says, her voice a soft murmur, as she comes to stand beside you. She, too, looks out over the dark sea, her expression thoughtful. "The sky feels so endless," she continues. "It's hard to comprehend just how vast it really is, and we're just a tiny part of it." You nod in agreement, the words she speaks resonating deep within you. In moments like this, the grandeur of the ship and the world it represents seems to fade away, and all that remains is the vast open space of the ocean. It is both humbling and awe-inspiring, reminding you of how small you really are in the grand scheme of things. Yet, here aboard Titanic, the world feels limitless. The promises of the future, of new beginnings, of adventure, all seem just within reach. For a brief moment, you are no longer bound by time or place, only by the vast potential that stretches out before you. "I think we should take a walk," Maggie suggests after a long pause. "I feel like we've spent enough time inside, don't you? We've seen the wonders of Titanic, but there's something about the deck at night that feels different, more peaceful." You agree readily. The ship, though magnificent in every way, can feel overwhelming at times, its sheer scale and opulence making it easy to lose oneself in its labyrinthine halls. But out here, under the open sky, it feels as though you can breathe again. The weight of expectations, of social rituals, of the constant hum of activity inside the ship all seem to melt away. Out here, it's just the two of you and the endless ocean, the ship carrying you forward on its steady course. As you walk side by side along the deck, the sounds of the ship, its orchestra, its passengers, the clinking of glasses fade into the background, leaving only the quiet rush of water against the hull. You pass a few fellow passengers on deck, some engaged in quiet conversation, others simply gazing out at the horizon, lost in their own thoughts. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the deck, painting the world in hues of gold and orange. It's a beautiful sight, one that stirs something deep within you, a sense of awe at the fleeting beauty of the moment. "What do you think of all this?" Maggie asks after a while, her voice soft but curious. She gestures around the deck, her eyes taking in the sight of the ship, the people, the sea. "It's all so extravagant, isn't it? I mean, the ship, the gowns, the jewelry. It's like stepping into a different world." You consider her question carefully, your eyes scanning the deck as you walk. The answer comes slowly, but with certainty. "It's magnificent, of course," you reply, your voice thoughtful. "But there's something more than just the luxury here. It's not just the gold and silk and crystal. It's the people, the stories they carry with them, the sense that we're all here for a reason, on this journey together. It's about more than just the wealth. It's about what it represents. A chance to start over, to escape, to be free. And perhaps most of all, it's about the experience itself." Maggie smiles, her eyes shining with understanding. "Yes, exactly. I think that's what makes this ship so special. It's not just a luxury liner. It's a place where dreams come true, where anything feels possible. It's like we're all part of something larger than ourselves, something that will be remembered forever." For a moment, the two of you walk in silence, each lost in your own thoughts. The ship continues to sail steadily toward New York, its engines humming beneath your feet, its vast halls filled with laughter, conversation, and music. It is a world unto itself, a place where anything can happen and everything seems possible. As the sun begins to set, casting the deck in a soft golden light, you hear a commotion ahead. A group of passengers has gathered near the railing, their attention focused on something in the distance. Curiosity piqued, you and Maggie approach, eager to see what's drawing their attention. A few murmurs drift back toward you as you get closer, and you catch sight of what has captured their attention. A group of officers standing at the bow, their faces tense, their eyes scanning the horizon. "What's going on?" you ask, leaning toward a gentleman standing nearby. He glances at you briefly before returning his gaze to the officers. "I'm not sure," he says, his voice low, "but it looks like they're concerned about something out there. I've heard talk of a possible iceberg in the vicinity. Not that we have anything to worry about, of course. The ship's unsinkable, isn't it?" You exchange a glance with Maggie, both of you silent for a moment as the reality of his words sinks in. Titanic, the pride of the White Star Line, the largest and most luxurious ship ever built, is unsinkable, so they say. But in the quiet of the evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, casting the sky in deep purples and blues, a flicker of doubt passes through your mind. It's a fleeting thought, and one you quickly dismiss. After all, there is no reason to believe anything could go wrong on this voyage. This ship was built to conquer the sea. But as you continue your walk along the deck, the thought lingers. It's not the first time you've heard the word unsinkable used in reference to Titanic, and it's not the last. Everywhere you go aboard the ship, from the grand dining salons to the small private lounges, the air is filled with talk of Titanic's superiority, her size, her luxury, her strength. And yet, beneath that confidence, there is an undercurrent of unease. The officers' tense expressions, the way passengers glance nervously toward the horizon, all suggest that there may be more to this journey than anyone truly realizes. For now, however, the evening proceeds as planned. Dinner is a lavish affair as always, and the guests are in high spirits, enjoying their meals, their company, and the opulence of the ship. The orchestra plays familiar, comforting tunes, and the air is filled with the clinking of glasses and the murmur of polite conversation. You, too, find yourself swept up in the atmosphere, your earlier doubts forgotten, as you engage in lively conversation with fellow passengers. The world of Titanic, with its luxuries and pleasures, seems far removed from the harsh realities of the outside world. And yet, somewhere deep inside, you can't shake the feeling that the ocean around you is vast and unpredictable, that the ship beneath you, no matter how magnificent, is not impervious to the forces of nature. But for now, at least, you push those thoughts aside. Tonight is for celebration, for indulgence, for the joy of being part of something grand, something unforgettable. As the evening draws to a close, you find yourself walking the decks once more, the stars above now shining brightly in the clear night sky. The ship moves steadily onward, its engines humming beneath your feet, the sea stretching out endlessly before you. And though the world around you may be filled with whispers and uncertainties, you know one thing for certain: this moment, this journey, this ship will be remembered forever. The night unfolds in layers, each more captivating than the last. As the evening settles into the quiet rhythm of shipboard life, you move through Titanic's grand halls, your steps reverberating against the polished floors of the corridors. The lights dim slightly, casting an intimate glow across the ornate fixtures and intricate woodwork that make this ship feel less like a vessel of transit and more like a floating palace. The grandeur is undeniable, but tonight, the gentle sway of the ship, the muffled hum of the engines beneath, and the soft chatter of passengers create a sense of warmth, a feeling that, despite the towering steel exterior, Titanic is a place where people are truly seen, where connections are forged not just through wealth, but through shared experiences. The grand staircase looms ahead as you walk, each step down leading you deeper into the heart of the ship. Its sweeping curves and crystal chandeliers dominate the space, bathing everyone in their soft, flattering light. Tonight, as always, the staircase is a spectacle, full of movement and life. Ladies in elaborate gowns drift down, their jewelry glittering in the glow, while men in dark tuxedos escort them with an air of proud ownership. The social dance begins anew, this intricate choreography of high society aboard the finest ship ever built, and you find yourself, for the moment, a part of it. You step into the reception room, your gaze scanning the crowd. The air is thick with polite conversation and the rustle of silk as the passengers prepare for the evening's formalities. It is the first proper dinner of the voyage, and everyone is in their finest. The atmosphere is a strange blend of excitement and solemnity, as though each person here is aware of being part of something momentous. The thought lingers for a moment before you dismiss it. The grand occasion at hand, too bright, too full of promise, to be dulled by anything else. Across the room, you spot Maggie, deep in conversation with a gentleman you don't recognize. She waves at you when she catches your eye, her smile wide. There is something about her, the way she exudes confidence, the way she moves through the crowd with the easy grace of someone who knows exactly where she belongs. that draws attention without effort. You make your way over to her, and as you approach, she turns her expression one of delighted surprise. "You look absolutely stunning," you remark as she catches sight of you, taking in her dark green satin gown, the rich fabric catching the light as she moves. Her hair, styled in soft curls, frames her face perfectly, and her eyes sparkle with an energy that seems to shine brighter in the reflection of the evening. "Thank you," Maggie responds with a mischievous smile. "Though I have to admit, it's the ship that makes everything feel grand." She gestures to the room around you, dinner guests milling about, stewards circulating with trays of champagne, and the orchestra playing light, classical melodies from the corner. "We're all just floating in this cocoon of luxury, aren't we?" Her words strike a chord within you, and you nod. "Yes, it feels like a dream," you say quietly, taking in the scene before you. The chandeliers above, the fine china on the tables, the elegant conversations, it's as though this world exists in a suspended state, removed from everything that exists outside of Titanic's glittering walls. The ocean, vast and unyielding, is forgotten for now. What matters is the experience, the allure, the indulgence, the rarity of being aboard such a ship. To many of the passengers, it's an escape, a chance to live a life removed from the constraints of the world. As you share this moment of understanding with Maggie, your attention is drawn to a group of well-dressed passengers entering the reception room. Among them is John Jacob Astor, his presence commanding the room as he strides through the door. His wife, Madeline, follows closely behind, her presence nearly as captivating as his. The crowd parts just slightly as they move through, whispers following in their wake. The Astors, it seems, cannot help but be the center of attention wherever they go. Their wealth and social standing make them untouchable in certain circles, but there is a visible ease with which they navigate the grandeur of the ship. Their wealth is not just a title, it is their life's signature, written with each step they take. Maggie leans in close, her voice a whisper. There's Madeline Astor, of course. She's barely older than Lucille, but no one dares look her in the eye. The Astors have practically made this ship their own personal playground. You can't help but notice the fascination in Maggie's voice as she watches them, a quiet acknowledgement of the undeniable allure of such immense wealth. Your eyes follow them for a moment, but then you turn your gaze to something or someone else. Across the room, a familiar figure catches your eye. Benjamin Guggenheim, standing alone near the bar, surveying the room with a look of detached amusement. He seems unaware of the buzz his presence generates. There is a coolness to him that is both off-putting and intriguing. His clothes are immaculate, his hair perfectly combed, and the faintest hint of a smirk plays at the corner of his lips. There's something about him, something enigmatic, that draws you in. Maggie, noticing your gaze, raises an eyebrow. "Mr. Guggenheim," she says, her voice slightly dry. "Quite the character, isn't he? A man who knows exactly what he wants and isn't afraid to get it. But there's something off, don't you think?" You nod thoughtfully, but before you can respond, a steward approaches, bowing slightly. "Madam, your table is ready." He gestures toward the dining saloon, and with that, the evening's most anticipated event is about to begin. The orchestra swells, and the room seems to come alive with energy as the guests begin to take their places for the evening's dinner. The dining saloon itself is a sight to behold, elegant, vast, and bathed in the soft glow of chandeliers. The white and gold decor gleams, a reflection of the opulence that Titanic represents. The tables are set with the finest china, each plate precisely aligned with its accompanying silverware. The air is filled with the scent of fine food, of carefully prepared courses, each more extravagant than the last. As you take your seat, you find yourself marveling at the sheer scale of the meal that awaits. A 10-course dinner with wine served at every turn. The luxury of it all seems almost too much to take in, too much to comprehend in one sitting. Your seat is beside Maggie, and the conversation begins almost immediately as guests exchange pleasantries and compliments. Mrs. Bishop, seated to your left, speaks of her recent trip to Paris with the quiet air of someone who is accustomed to traveling in the highest circles. The talk shifts from European fashion to the latest developments in American industry, with Mr. Bishop joining in with occasional remarks about the latest investment opportunities in the stock market. As the first course is served, oysters on crushed ice, paired with a delicate glass of champagne, the conversation flows easily, and you find yourself absorbing the nuances of the social world around you. Every word, every glance exchanged is a piece of the larger puzzle that is Titanic's social fabric. The passengers aboard this ship are not just wealthy individuals, they are representatives of a world that is rapidly changing, a world of new technologies, new ideas, and new power structures. Yet, within this world, they are bound by the unspoken rules of high society, the expectations, the judgments, the need to maintain appearances at all costs. The second course arrives consommé, rich and flavorful, served with a delicate touch. The wine flows, and as the evening progresses, the room fills with the sound of laughter and conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the rustle of fine silk. Despite the formal atmosphere, there is an unmistakable sense of camaraderie among the passengers, a shared understanding that this moment, this experience, will be remembered long after they disembark in New York. As the evening wears on, the conversations become more relaxed, the formality of earlier exchanges giving way to a more comfortable rapport. You find yourself drawn into a discussion with Mrs. Widener, who is speaking passionately about the state of women's rights and the fight for suffrage. Her words are both eloquent and forceful, and you can see the fire in her eyes as she speaks. There is something captivating about her intelligence, her conviction, and as you listen, you realize that this is a woman who will not be easily swayed. "I've spent years fighting for this cause," she says, her voice low but firm. "The road ahead is long, but we must keep pushing forward. Women have the right to be heard, to be seen as equals, and I will not rest until that is the reality." Her words resonate with you, and for a moment, you find yourself lost in thought. The suffragist movement, the fight for equality, the battle for women's rights, these are battles that transcend class, transcend wealth, and transcend time. As you look around the room, you realize that for all the luxury, for all the wealth and privilege that surrounds you, there are people here who are fighting for something much larger than themselves. And in that moment, you feel a deep sense of admiration for them, these men and women, who are not content with simply existing in their world of opulence, but are striving to make that world better, more just, more equitable. By the time dessert arrives, Waldorf pudding, peaches in chartreuse jelly, and chocolate, your mind is full of new thoughts, new perspectives. The evening has unfolded in ways you hadn't anticipated. The grandeur of the meal, the richness of the conversation, the beauty of the ship, none of it can compare to the deeper understanding that has begun to emerge. Titanic is not just a vessel of luxury. It is a microcosm of the world itself, a world of privilege, of power, of ambition, and of change. And in the midst of it all, you realize that you are part of something far greater than the sum of its parts. It's a realization that fills you with awe, and yet it also carries with it a weight, a weight of responsibility, of awareness, of a new understanding of the world. As the evening winds down and the guests begin to rise from their seats, you take one last look around the room. The laughter, the conversation, the movement, all of it is part of this moment in time, a fleeting glimpse into a world of opulence and social hierarchy. And yet, beneath it all, there is something more, something that speaks to the timeless human experience, to the desire for connection, for understanding, and for something greater than oneself. You leave the dining room, your mind full, your heart heavy with the knowledge that Titanic, like the world she represents, is a place of contradictions, of beauty and fragility, of power and vulnerability. The night stretches on, the ship continuing its steady course across the Atlantic. And for the moment, at least, you are content to exist within this world, to be part of something so grand and so momentous, yet fragile in its own way. The future may hold uncertainties, but for tonight, at least, you are here. And this moment, this extraordinary moment, belongs to you. As the night deepens, the ship's gentle movement becomes more pronounced, a slow and soothing rocking that hums through the grand vessel's body. Titanic, though magnificent in its design, is not impervious to the sea, and there is something deeply humbling about the way she drifts across the dark expanse of the ocean. The grand staircase, still lit by the soft glow of chandeliers, is quieter now as passengers retreat to their staterooms or drift off into private corners of the ship. You stand for a moment at the top, looking down, the soft golden light pooling around the banister, casting long, elegant shadows on the ornate floors. The first-class lounge is no longer as bustling as it was earlier in the evening. Now, only a few scattered figures remain, drifting like shadows in their elegant attire. You spot a few familiar faces, the Wideners, their hushed conversation in the corner, and the couple you met earlier, the young Mr. and Mrs. Carter, now lounging comfortably with a brandy in hand. The atmosphere is quieter, more contemplative, as if the ship itself has entered a new phase in its journey, a more intimate one. You find yourself drawn to the soft notes of the orchestra that still play from the far corner of the lounge. Their sound is gentle now, a muted selection of slow waltzes and familiar pieces, the melodies flowing through the room with ease. You take a seat near the large windows that overlook the vast expanse of the ocean, the faint, almost imperceptible rolling of the sea below. It is here, in this small, intimate moment, that the true splendor of the ship begins to reveal itself. Not in the grandeur of the meals or the spectacle of the first-class saloon, but in the quiet spaces between, where the hum of conversation and the sound of music are the only things that fill the air. You settle back in your seat, taking in the peacefulness that now surrounds you, the soft warmth of the room contrasting with the chill that waits outside on deck. The night is full of such contrasts, and it's in this quiet, between the chatter and the clinking of glassware, that the more personal moments unfold. Maggie has long since disappeared into the crowd, chatting animatedly with a group of passengers she has befriended, her infectious laugh ringing clear above the hum of the room. You see her a few times. In passing, her emerald dress, a striking contrast to the darker tones of the evening attire. For a moment, you're reminded of her sharp wit and her keen perception. She is a woman who sees the world in layers, each one revealing more than the last. And yet, despite her intelligence, her unerring eye for detail, Maggie is also someone who delights in the simplest pleasures, like the quiet moments that now fill the lounge. She has a way of moving between worlds, making connections effortlessly, and even now, as you watch her, you marvel at how naturally she navigates the social currents of Titanic. Your own thoughts, too, meander as the night stretches on. The days have begun to blend together in a slow and deliberate fashion, each one following the other in a soft rhythm, like the gentle waves outside. And yet, there's something about tonight, about this evening, that feels different. The last few days have been a blur of social gatherings, extravagant dinners, and soft-spoken laughter. But tonight, as you sit alone in the lounge, something shifts within you. Perhaps it's the sheer vastness of the ocean, the way it stretches out endlessly beneath the ship, that brings with it a feeling of quiet reflection. Or perhaps it's the subtle understanding that the world outside, with all its complexities, will soon be waiting for you. But here, aboard Titanic, you are insulated in this moment, floating in a bubble of luxury and illusion, a world that exists for the briefest of time, suspended between here and there, between the old world and the new. The steward approaches, his presence a subtle interruption to your thoughts. "May I offer you something, madam? A brandy, perhaps? Or perhaps some tea?" he asks, his voice low and respectful, as if conscious of the reverence with which Titanic's passengers treat their surroundings. You glance at him, momentarily unsure of what you desire. The day has been long, and the evening has stretched into hours, but the thought of something warm, something comforting, appeals to you. "Tea," you say softly, your voice barely rising above the quiet murmur of the room. The steward nods and moves away, his movements efficient and practiced as he prepares your order. The sound of footsteps approaching draws your attention once more. You look up to find Mr. Guggenheim standing before you, his tall, impeccably dressed figure casting a long shadow across the lounge. For a moment, his presence fills the space with a certain gravity, and his sharp, calculating gaze seems to linger on you before his lips curl into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Good evening, Mrs. Brown," he says, his voice smooth, but with an edge of something more. A challenge, perhaps, or a test. "I hope you're enjoying the voyage." You rise slightly from your seat in acknowledgement, surprised by his sudden appearance. "Very much so," you reply, offering a polite smile. Titanic is quite extraordinary. The luxury, the attention to detail, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. Guggenheim takes a step closer, his gaze never leaving yours. "It's a ship designed for those who understand the value of experience," he remarks, his words carrying a weight, as if he's speaking of something far beyond the ship itself. It's not just about crossing the ocean. It's about making a statement, about defining who you are in the world. There is something calculating in his tone, something cold, and you feel a slight unease settle within you. It's as though he's measuring you, taking stock of your every word, your every movement. For a moment, the warmth of the lounge seems distant, the room suddenly too large, too full of hidden meanings. You remain composed, maintaining the cool detachment that you've cultivated through years of socializing in elite circles. "I agree," you say, your voice steady. "A ship like this is more than just a means of travel. It's a statement of progress, of what humanity can achieve when it dares to dream." Guggenheim's smile deepens, and he nods slightly, as if pleased with your response. He doesn't linger for long, though. "I trust you'll join us later for coffee in the Café Parisien," he adds, his words casual, as though the invitation is a mere formality. "We're gathering a few of the passengers there for a late-night chat." You hesitate for just a moment, glancing over at the other passengers in the lounge. The Café Parisien, with its chic ambiance and exclusivity, holds a certain allure, but you also sense the underlying tension in Guggenheim's invitation. "I'm sure I will," you reply, the words slipping easily from your tongue, though something about the request leaves a strange aftertaste. With a final nod, he turns and disappears into the crowd, leaving you once again in solitude. The music from the orchestra seems louder now, as though the ship itself is pushing forward, moving steadily towards something unknown, something inevitable. Your thoughts return to the moments you've spent aboard Titanic so far, to the people you've met, the social rituals you've observed, and the subtle shifts in power that have become so apparent in the close quarters of the ship. The tea arrives, warm and fragrant, the steam rising in delicate tendrils. You take a sip, savoring the quiet peace that it brings, the warmth spreading through you. The night stretches on, and the ship continues its journey across the Atlantic, an unyielding force in the dark ocean, moving toward an uncertain future. As the night unfolds and the moments slip by like the gentle swells of the sea beneath the ship's hull, you find yourself lost in a labyrinth of thoughts, reflections, and silent observations. The grandeur of Titanic has begun to settle into something more intimate. The lights shimmer gently in the distance as the stars outside continue their eternal dance across the heavens. Inside the lounge, passengers still mingle and converse, their voices a soft hum against the backdrop of the orchestra's light classical melodies. And yet, for all the elegance, there is a subtle tension in the air, an awareness, perhaps, that something monumental lingers just beneath the surface. The ship, in all its splendor, seems to float through the void, carving its way through a sea that seems unyielding, unending. And within its walls, humanity continues to enact its age-old dramas, subtle, silent, yet profoundly real. You stand slowly, your mind turning back to the conversation with Mr. Guggenheim. His presence lingers in the room like a shadow. There's something about him that remains unsettled, a sense that he is playing a game far beyond what you can immediately understand. He has his own stakes here, as does everyone aboard, and as much as he appears to be a man of calculated charm, you sense that his motivations are layered, more complex than the exterior might suggest. For all his wealth and power, there is something fragile, almost brittle, about him. It's as if he too, like the rest of the passengers aboard Titanic, is looking for something that will affirm his place, his power, his legacy. What exactly that is, though, remains unclear. You find yourself contemplating his invitation to the Café Parisien. The idea of joining him and his select group of passengers there seems enticing, even intriguing, but it also raises certain questions. What kind of conversations occur in that refined, velvet-lined space at the edges of the ship? What alliances are forged? What conversations are whispered over glasses of champagne or delicate brandy? You know that Titanic, for all its luxury, is still a microcosm of the world outside, a world of ambition, of subtle power plays, and of delicate, often hidden hierarchies. The first-class passengers, though elegant in their appearance, are just as bound by these forces as those they look down upon from their elevated station. Perhaps, in the end, it is their pursuit of status and influence that connects them all. The conversations and alliances that unfold in the Café Parisien will likely reveal far more than a simple exchange of pleasantries. A soft cough from the doorway brings you back to the present. A steward stands there, his posture immaculate, his face unreadable. "Madam," he says quietly, "Mr. Guggenheim's party is awaiting your arrival in the Café Parisien. If you wish to join them now." You nod, smiling politely, and rise from your seat. The moment feels strangely inevitable, as though the evening is guiding you toward a singular destination. With a brief glance at the remaining guests scattered around the lounge, you follow the steward through the grand hallway toward the Café Parisien. The closer you get, the more the sounds of quiet laughter and the clinking of glassware become apparent. The room hums with a peculiar energy, a blend of casual elegance and something more purposeful beneath the surface. It is a place where the boundaries between social classes are slightly more fluid, but the core of power remains intact, unshakable. You enter the Café Parisien, its decor just as refined and luxurious as the rest of Titanic. The small tables are surrounded by chairs covered in plush velvet, the warm light from overhead sconces casting a golden glow over everything. A small trio of musicians plays in the corner, their music soft and lively, a stark contrast to the more stately tones of the evening. The atmosphere feels almost like a Parisian cafe, as its name suggests, but with the added surreal quality of being afloat, miles from land, drifting toward a new world. The group from Guggenheim's party is seated near one of the windows, their voices rising in welcome as they notice your arrival. Guggenheim himself rises first, the motion swift and elegant, his presence commanding in a way that is both natural and practiced. "Ah, Mrs. Brown, delighted that you could join us," he says, his voice as smooth as silk. "Please, have a seat. We were just discussing the intricacies of the voyage. The ship, the sea, the endless horizon. Come, join us." You take your place beside Madame Obar, whose warm smile is accompanied by an easy charm. Her English, though not flawless, is more than sufficient to make conversation flow effortlessly. "Isn't the ship just extraordinary?" she says, her accent thick with French allure. "Every corner is a masterpiece, each detail a reflection of what humanity is capable of when it sets its mind to it." You smile, nodding in agreement. Indeed, it's an incredible achievement. To think that this ship, this entire experience, is a dream realized for so many. Madame Obar's eyes flicker with interest, and she leans slightly closer. "And yet," she says softly, almost conspiratorially, in all its grandeur, "I wonder if Titanic will be remembered as more than just a vessel. It seems to me that it may well become a symbol of our time, a symbol of everything we've accomplished and everything we stand to lose." Her words, though spoken with a light-hearted air, carry a deeper weight. It's an observation that resonates in ways you hadn't anticipated. Titanic, for all its majesty, may very well become more than just a ship. It may become a symbol of the fragile human condition itself, of the rise and fall of empires, of mankind's eternal striving to master the forces of nature, only to be humbled by them. Before you can respond, Mr. Guggenheim returns to the conversation, his voice cutting through the tension that had momentarily lingered. "I've always said," he begins, his tone warm but firm, "that progress is defined by what we can create, but also by what we can control. And this ship," he gestures broadly, his hand encompassing the entire room, "represents that very notion. We control the seas, we control time, we control space. And we've done so by mastering the elements themselves." His words hang in the air, a testament to the ethos of the time, the belief that man's ingenuity could bend the world to his will. There's a certain pride in his voice, but also something deeper, something that feels almost like a warning. The sheer scale of Titanic, its size and its luxury, may be seen as a triumph, but there is something about the hubris in it that rings hollow, especially when you look out the window toward the dark expanse of the ocean, infinite and unyielding. As if reading your thoughts, Mr. Guggenheim adds, "Of course, there's always something unpredictable about nature, isn't there? Something humbling about the very forces we seek to control." You nod slightly, feeling the weight of his words. There's an undercurrent to the evening, a tension that refuses to dissipate, no matter how much the conversation dances around the surface. You feel it, too, an unease, a slight sense of foreboding, as if Titanic herself is aware of the grand journey she's undertaking, the stakes that accompany it. At the table, conversation shifts again. This time, to lighter topics plans for New York. The latest gossip from Southampton, a play that had recently opened in London. But you can't shake the feeling that something is off, that the ship, for all its luxury, is adrift in ways that aren't entirely under control. It's a thought that lingers as the evening stretches on, the drinks flow, and the conversation continues to unfold in its predictable manner. The cafe becomes more animated as the night deepens. The subtle shift in the mood is evident. Passengers who had been reserved earlier are now more willing to share, to speak freely. The clink of glasses, the sound of laughter, the rustle of silk gowns and fine wool suits, all these elements combine to create a vibrant tapestry of sound and movement, a snapshot of life aboard Titanic in its fleeting moments of peace. But beneath it all, there's still that feeling, subtle but present, that the ship is on a path towards something inevitable. The grandeur, the luxury, the glamour, all of it feels both illusory and real at the same time. The passage of time aboard Titanic is marked not just by the rising and setting of the sun, but by the subtle shifts in the conversations that unfold, by the moments of silence that occasionally punctuate the lively chatter, by the knowing glances exchanged between passengers, and by the way the ship continues to glide across the ocean, carrying them all forward toward an unknown destination. And as the evening continues, you can't help but wonder, in this vessel that promises so much, in this grandest of ships, what awaits? What truly lies ahead? In the heart of the Atlantic, as Titanic steams onward, a floating monument to human ambition, drifting toward the horizon. As the hours continue to tick away aboard the great vessel, you find that the moments of luxury and exhilaration blur into a quiet rhythm. Time becomes an abstract thing, a fleeting experience that slips past unnoticed in the embrace of the ship's comfort. And yet, there is something profoundly different about this evening, something in the air that demands a closer inspection, a moment of deeper introspection. The Café Parisian, now bathed in the soft golden light of the chandeliers, holds an almost hypnotic appeal. The mood here feels far more relaxed than in the dining room, but there's an undercurrent, a tension that thrums beneath the surface of the conversations. Across the room, the cluster of well-dressed men and women continues to chatter. Mr. Guggenheim, though ever the picture of poised elegance, seems to be lost in his thoughts more than he usually is, his eyes distant, as if looking beyond the walls of the cafe, beyond the ocean stretching out endlessly in front of them. His gaze drifts toward the window, though no storm brews on the horizon, and the stars above remain silent in their eternal procession. It's almost as though he's contemplating some distant future, one where Titanic's fate and the world it represents may no longer hold the same significance. Madame Obar, sensing perhaps that the moment calls for a shift, leans closer to you. Her voice, though laced with playful charm, carries a layer of sincerity. It is strange, no? This journey, we are crossing the Atlantic, but it feels as though we are suspended in time itself. I feel as though we've crossed into a new world, one where the rules that governed us on land no longer matter. The sea is a place of mystery, of hidden power, and in many ways it commands us all, doesn't it? You nod, your thoughts wandering to the same place. There's something deeply primal about the sea, something that humbles you in ways you can't quite explain. As magnificent as Titanic is, with its polished wood, its gleaming brass, its crystal chandeliers and marble floors, it's just a speck in the vast expanse of the ocean. The ship's size and its modernity can't conquer the nature of the sea. It simply exists within it, a magnificent creation of human ingenuity, temporarily held aloft by it, but ultimately at the mercy of its depths. It's a thought that weighs on you, though you don't share it aloud. Instead, you smile in acknowledgement of Madame Obar's words. "You're right," you say softly. "The sea does feel infinite. We are merely passing through it, though it seems so still, so permanent." The conversation shifts again, like the ever-changing course of the ocean itself. Mr. Bishop, who has been quietly observing the exchange, pipes up with a thoughtful expression. "I've spent many years navigating the halls of power, dealing in politics and business," he says, his tone calm but measured. "But I find that this ship, this floating palace, brings a different kind of power, an intangible one. I find myself, for the first time, fully aware of my own fragility. We are all, at some level, subject to forces far beyond our control." His words linger in the air, drawing a few glances from those gathered. It's not an unusual sentiment, but it carries weight here, in this place, aboard this ship, where the power of wealth, privilege, and luxury often seems to shield its occupants from the mundane realities of life. But in this enclosed world, surrounded by opulence, there's no denying the humbling truth that nature, with all its immensity, can always remain the dominant force. Mr. Bishop's admission hangs between the passengers, a quiet reminder of the fragility of even the most powerful among them. Yet, as you glance around the table, you see that no one acknowledges the unspoken undercurrent that his words have stirred. Instead, there is a soft chuckle from Harry Widener, who leans back in his chair, swirling his glass of brandy. "Power," Harry says, his voice light, yet not entirely without reflection, "is nothing more than an illusion. It can be taken from us in an instant. We see it all the time. The world may bow to us when we command it, but in the end, we are always at the mercy of time and circumstance. Time, after all, waits for no one." His eyes meet yours, and in that moment, you see something more than the usual confidence of the heir to a vast fortune. There is something in his gaze that seems to acknowledge the delicate nature of his position, as if he, too, feels that weight of the sea, of time, pressing against him, reminding him of his own vulnerability. "Indeed," you reply softly, the words carrying the weight of your thoughts. "No one is immune to the forces that shape our lives. No matter how much we control, how much we create, nature's hand remains ever present, unseen but always there, just beyond the horizon." A soft silence falls over the group as everyone reflects on the sentiment, and for a moment, it seems as if the collective realization of the ship's fragility and the fragility of human life itself draws the passengers closer together. They are united, not just by their wealth or their status, but by the shared understanding that they are all in this journey, this life together, however different their worlds may seem on the surface. But the silence is brief, and soon the conversation begins to pick up again, as though the words have been absorbed, understood, and left behind for the time being. The orchestra changes its tune, the delicate strains of a waltz filling the air. Light and graceful, several couples begin to stand, exchanging glances that suggest they are ready to dance. The atmosphere in the cafe shifts again, as though the conversation has run its course, and it is time to return to the evening's entertainment. The mood lightens as the music flows through the room, drawing passengers toward the floor. You watch as the first couples glide across the floor, their movements elegant and practiced, their attire shimmering in the soft light. There's something mesmerizing about the way the dancers move, every step precise, every turn calculated. It's a dance of social performance, an outward display of grace and poise, as though this too is part of the facade of luxury that defines Titanic. The music becomes more captivating with every note, and you feel yourself drawn into the rhythm, unable to resist the allure of the moment. Even the conversation, once so deep and contemplative, fades into the background as the beauty of the dance takes over the room. Madame Aubar leans toward you, a playful smile dancing across her lips. "Would you care to join the dance?" she asks, her eyes glinting with mischief. "It would be an absolute pleasure to see you glide across the floor as well." You hesitate for a moment, the pull of the music tempting you, but something holds you back. You are keenly aware of the heaviness of your thoughts, of the gravity of the conversations that have filled the evening. You need time to process, to let the quiet moments wash over you, to breathe in the elegance of the ship, the dance, and the people who surround you. You look at Madame Aubar, and with a smile, gently shake your head. "Perhaps another time," you reply. "For now, I'm content to watch." She smiles knowingly, her gaze flickering toward the dancers. "Very well," she says, sitting back in her chair. "But you cannot resist forever. The allure of the waltz is simply too powerful." As the night progresses, the dance continues, the music sweeping through the room, binding the passengers in a shared experience of beauty and movement. The cafe, once a quiet gathering space, becomes alive with energy and excitement. The sound of footsteps on the floor, the rustle of fine clothing, and the soft laughter of the dancers filling the air. For a moment, it feels as though the worries and uncertainties of the outside world have been left behind, replaced by the artifice of Titanic's glittering world. Here, in this space, on this ship, the pressures of life seem distant and far away, as though the passengers can escape into the perfection of the moment, the beauty of the dance, the elegance of the surroundings. It is a fleeting illusion, but one that, in this instant, is enough to carry them through the night. And yet, as you sit back, watching the dancers, you are reminded of the fragile nature of this world, of how easily it could all be swept away. The thought lingers, unspoken, but powerful. Titanic, for all its grandeur, is still a ship, still bound to the sea, still subject to the whims of nature. And as the music plays on, you can't shake the sense that, despite the perfection of this moment, the journey toward the unknown is always there, just beyond the horizon. The night wears on, and as the final waltz comes to a close, you find yourself once again lost in thought. The ship continues its majestic course across the Atlantic, gliding through the night, unaware of the impending storm that will change everything. The grand illusion of luxury, of wealth, of control is intact for now, but the forces of nature, of fate, are always in motion, waiting for their moment to remind the world of its fragility. And in that quiet, unspoken truth, there lies a deep, unsettling peace. The sun has barely risen when you find yourself standing at the boat deck again. The coolness of the early morning air, a stark contrast to the warmth and comfort you had left behind in your stateroom. The ship is moving silently, its engines a soft hum beneath the surface, as if in tune with the gentle swaying of the ocean beneath it. There's an uncanny sense of tranquility at this hour, an elusive peace that exists only in those early moments before the rest of the world stirs. You've come to cherish these mornings, where the weight of social interaction is momentarily lifted, and you can exist in the stillness of your own thoughts. The world around you feels vast, almost infinite, as the ship cuts through the ocean, the endless blue stretching out before you like a canvas unmarked by time. The sky is a pale canvas, touched with streaks of lavender and soft pinks, the faintest hints of daylight creeping over the horizon. The water beneath you is calm, almost eerily so, a reflection of the serene quietude above. For a moment, you're caught in the hypnotic rhythm of the ship's journey, feeling as if time itself has slowed, and the worries of the world have ceased to exist. You breathe deeply, the crisp ocean air filling your lungs as you lean over the rail. The vast expanse of the Atlantic, stretching out into infinity, is overwhelming. It's hard not to feel small in such a moment. The ocean has always been a powerful reminder of how insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. It's a humbling thought, but also one that brings an unusual sense of comfort. Here, aboard Titanic, amidst all the luxuries and wealth, you are still part of something so much greater than yourself. The ship is but a tiny speck moving through a world that has existed for millennia, untouched by human hands, untouched by time. It's a fleeting existence, one that can be easily forgotten amid the daily rituals of society aboard. The sound of footsteps disrupts the quiet, and you turn to see Thomas Andrews walking toward you, his coat flapping in the gentle breeze, his face illuminated by the soft morning light. He greets you with a nod, a friendly yet somewhat distant expression on his face, as if lost in thought. "Good morning," he says, his voice low and calm, in tune with the tranquility around you. "It's a beautiful morning, isn't it?" You nod in agreement, drawn into the stillness of the moment. "Yes, it's perfect. There's something about this time of day that feels timeless." The ship almost feels like it's floating outside of time. Andrews looks toward the horizon, his expression pensive, as if considering your words. "I know exactly what you mean. Titanic has a way of making you forget about everything else. The world outside seems to disappear, doesn't it? There's a sense of eternity to it, a place where time doesn't really exist, just us, moving through the water." His words echo in your mind as you both stand in silence, watching the sun rise slowly over the ocean. It's a slow, almost reverent process, the light creeping steadily across the sky, coloring the clouds with soft oranges, pinks, and yellows. The water below reflects the colors, a perfect mirror of the sky above. The world seems suspended in a moment of perfect balance, where everything is at peace, and there is nothing more than the ship, the ocean, and the sky. For a fleeting second, you allow yourself to believe that the ship is invincible, that the world aboard Titanic will continue to be, as it is now, flawless, calm, and untouchable. It's an illusion, of course, one that you quickly dismiss as the sobering thought creeps back into your mind. Titanic, for all its grandeur, is still subject to the whims of nature, just like any other creation of man. The sea, vast and unknowable, holds the true power, and Titanic, no matter how magnificent, can only move through it at its mercy. "I've been thinking a lot about the ship's legacy," Andrew says, his voice breaking the silence again. "I'm proud of what we've built here. But at the same time, there's a part of me that knows this ship is just one step in a much larger journey. It's the beginning of something greater. The Britannic, for instance. She'll be even better, more refined. We've learned so much from Titanic, and I want to see it taken further. The dream never really ends." You turn to face him, intrigued by his passion for the future, his dedication to pushing the boundaries of what's possible. "I admire that about you, Mr. Andrews. Your vision isn't just about creating something grand in the present. It's about looking forward to what comes next. That's rare." Andrews smiles, the lines of his face softening. "It's what keeps me going, I suppose. The idea that even when we achieve something extraordinary, we can always strive for something more. The world moves forward, and we have to move with it, even if we're just passengers on the journey." You both share a quiet laugh, but there's something deeper in his words, something more meaningful than just a casual conversation. He's speaking about more than just ships. He's speaking about life itself. The relentless march of time, the constant push to build, to achieve, to improve. It's a theme that resonates in the lives of everyone aboard Titanic, this drive to succeed, to be seen, to make something lasting. But in this moment, standing on the deck of the world's greatest ship, the question looms: how can anything we do ever truly be lasting when compared to the vastness of the ocean, the endless sky? Andrews glances back toward the horizon, his gaze lingering there, as though searching for something that eludes him. "Do you ever think about how small we are?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "Here we are, surrounded by all this luxury, this technology, this human achievement, and yet the ocean is always there, reminding us that we're just a speck in the grand scheme of things." It's humbling, isn't it? It is humbling, more than he can know. In this moment, aboard Titanic, in the heart of this grand vessel that represents the pinnacle of human achievement, you feel the weight of the universe pressing down on you, and it's hard to tell where the ship ends and the ocean begins. Everything feels intertwined, and for a moment, you wonder if this is what Andrews means when he talks about legacy. Titanic, despite its glory, is part of something much bigger. It's a brief moment in time, a fleeting achievement that will, in the end, be forgotten like so many others before it. Perhaps that's what makes it all the more precious: its fragility, its transience, the awareness that, even in the midst of greatness, there is always something more, something that lies beyond the horizon, just out of reach. "I think that's why I love the sea," you reply, your voice soft. "It's so vast, so infinite. It makes everything else seem small, doesn't it? The ship, the passengers, even the grandest of ambitions, it all fades away when you look at the ocean." Andrews nods, his eyes reflecting the same reverence that you feel. "Exactly. There's a certain peace in that, don't you think? In knowing that we're part of something so much greater than ourselves. The ocean has been here long before us, and it will be here long after we're gone. We're just passing through, like the waves." For a moment, the two of you stand in silence, watching the light shift as the sun rises higher, casting long shadows across the deck. The sound of the waves below seems louder now, a constant reminder that the ship, despite its majesty, is still at the mercy of the world around it. You find yourself wondering what it would be like if Titanic, this perfect creation, were to disappear into the depths of the sea. What would become of the dreams and ambitions it carries with it? Would anyone remember this moment, this voyage, the passengers who sailed aboard her? But before you can delve too deeply into those thoughts, a soft voice interrupts your reverie. You turn to see another passenger approaching, a familiar face. It's Mrs. Bishop, her expression as always, polished and composed. She smiles warmly as she nears, clearly enjoying the peace of the early morning as much as you. "I do hope I'm not interrupting," she says, her voice smooth and pleasant. "It's such a beautiful morning, isn't it?" "Not at all," you reply with a smile, stepping aside to make room for her at the rail. "It's perfect." As she joins you, Andrews nods politely and excuses himself, his thoughts clearly elsewhere as he walks away. You watch him go, a sense of something unspoken lingering in the air. There is a weight to these moments aboard Titanic, a weight that isn't easily understood, but is deeply felt nonetheless. The passengers move through the days with their conversations and their concerns, but beneath the surface, there's always a sense that this world is a fragile bubble, one that can't last forever. Mrs. Bishop stands in silence beside you for a moment, her gaze focused on the horizon. There's an air of contemplation about her, as though she too is caught up in the enormity of the ship and the sea. You wonder if she's thinking the same thing, how everything aboard Titanic, no matter how perfect, is merely a temporary blip in the vastness of time. "I overheard your conversation with Mr. Andrews," she says suddenly, her voice thoughtful. It's interesting, isn't it? How we spend so much of our lives building things, creating legacies, only to realize that everything is so fleeting. You glance at her, surprised by the depth of her words. Mrs. Bishop is usually so focused on social propriety, on the elegance and expectations of first-class life, that it's hard to imagine her contemplating the larger questions of existence. But here, in this quiet moment on the deck, she seems different, more human, as though the weight of Titanic's journey has made her reflect on things she might normally prefer to ignore. Yes, you reply quietly. It's easy to forget that, isn't it? To get lost in the idea that we can control everything, that our creations will outlast us. But when you're out here, on the ocean, it's hard not to see how small we really are. Mrs. Bishop nods slowly, her gaze never leaving the horizon. I wonder sometimes if we're all just pretending that the world is as we want it to be, that everything is under our control. But out here, there's nothing to hide behind. The sea shows us who we really are. You turn to look at her, finding a new level of respect in her eyes. Despite the polished exterior, Mrs. Bishop is no different from the rest of us, caught in the same web of ambition, desire, and the search for meaning. Perhaps, in the midst of all the luxuries and the social games aboard Titanic, she too feels the weight of the world's uncertainty. We're all just passing through, aren't we? She says softly, almost as if to herself. Just like the ship, moving through the water. We build these lives, these worlds, but in the end, they're only temporary. One day, Titanic will be just another story, just another memory. And the weight of her words settles over you like a heavy fog. And for a moment, the grandeur of Titanic feels less important. The ship, the passengers, the elegance of first-class dining, all of it seems insignificant in comparison to the eternal truths that the ocean holds. Titanic, as magnificent as she is, will fade away, just as every other ship, every other creation, fades into the past. But for now, aboard Titanic, in this moment of quiet reflection, you find peace in knowing that, for all the fleeting nature of it all, this moment, this sunrise, this stillness, this shared understanding is enough. The afternoon gradually slides into evening aboard Titanic, the air rich with the smell of salt water and faintly tinged with the scent of the finest perfumes. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, the deck transforms into a golden canvas, the light reflecting off the glistening sea. You, like so many others, pause for a moment at the railing to take in the stunning sight. The quiet hum of the ship's engines beneath your feet, the sound of the waves gently lapping at the hull, the soft rustling of clothes as passengers walk by. These simple sounds are the background to this delicate, fleeting moment. A few hundred yards away, the lookouts keep vigil from their stations, scanning the vast expanse of water for any sign of obstacles or ships that might approach. To them, the sea is not a gentle beauty, but a space fraught with potential danger, an unforgiving domain where the smallest mistake can prove catastrophic. You wonder, in this moment of peaceful contemplation, if they ever take the time to pause and appreciate the beauty that surrounds them. Do they see the same vast ocean stretching endlessly toward the horizon? Or is it only a job, a task that requires focus, vigilance, and unwavering attention? They are, in a way, the true sentinels of Titanic, tasked with keeping this magnificent vessel safe from the invisible perils of the sea. But for now, all is calm. The ship slices through the water with an almost serene grace, the smooth lines of her hull cutting through the ocean with an elegance that is almost deceptive. To those on board, Titanic feels indestructible. It is a symbol of human achievement, an embodiment of mankind's mastery over nature, a floating city that could never be toppled by the forces of the ocean. Yet there is something in the back of your mind, a quiet whisper, that tells you that even the greatest of human creations is still subject to the whims of fate, that no amount of wealth, grandeur, or engineering expertise can guarantee safety in the face of nature's raw power. Inside the ship, life continues as normal. The first-class lounge, resplendent in its Louis XV style, becomes a gathering place for the wealthiest passengers aboard, offering a refuge from the bustling crowds of the ship. Here, the chatter flows easily, the clinking of crystal glasses mingling with the soft strains of the orchestra in the corner. The conversations are light at first, almost trivial, discussing the latest European fashions, new business ventures, and fleeting anecdotes from previous voyages. But beneath the surface, there's a tension that can't be ignored, an awareness that this shared space, this world within the ship's walls, is only temporary, and that the real world exists beyond the grand salons, beyond the chandeliers and crystal glasses, where the ocean stretches out with all its unforgiving vastness. As you wander through the lounge, you notice a familiar face in the corner, Mrs. Bishop, seated elegantly in a silk gown, her attention divided between her conversation with the other ladies and her own private thoughts. She has always been the picture of poise, a woman whose reputation precedes her. Yet today, as you approach her table, you notice a flicker of something else in her eyes, a slight hesitation, a subtle vulnerability that she has managed to keep hidden behind her usual calm demeanor. The smile she offers you is polite, but there is something more to it, a depth of emotion that lingers just beneath the surface. "Ah, there you are," she says, her voice smooth, but with a faint trace of something else, something deeper. "Please, join us." You take a seat, and for a moment, the conversation resumes its usual course, light, pleasant chatter about everything from the latest gossip about prominent families in New York to the upcoming social events in Southampton. But you can't help but notice the slight strain in Mrs. Bishop's voice, the way her gaze occasionally drifts toward the windows, as though something beyond the glass is calling to her. Perhaps it's the vastness of the sea that unnerves her, the realization that this luxury, this bubble of safety, cannot last forever. As the conversation continues, you feel the pull of the ocean once again. The gentle hum of Titanic's engines beneath your feet seems to fade into the background, replaced by a more primal sound, the call of the sea. The ocean, with all its mystery and power, seems to be ever present, even here in this luxurious space. No matter how carefully crafted the social hierarchies aboard the ship may be, no matter how intricately the dining rooms are arranged, the sea is the ultimate ruler. And yet the passengers continue on, unfazed, each one absorbed in their own private worlds, each one caught in the web of their own desires, ambitions, and fears. The conversation shifts again, this time focusing on the upcoming evening's dinner. Another round of introductions and polite exchanges, followed by the customary compliments about one's attire. As the ladies discuss their gowns in hushed tones, comparing notes on the latest Parisian styles and fabrics, you glance out the window and watch as the sun dips lower, casting a soft, golden light over the endless expanse of water. The horizon seems to stretch forever, and for a moment you feel a deep sense of awe, an almost spiritual connection to the vastness that surrounds you. The world beyond Titanic's walls is an unknown space, one that demands respect, one that reminds you of the smallness of human life in the grand scheme of things. It is this realization that lingers as you make your way to the dining room. The passengers who gather here each night, dressed in their finest, seem to inhabit a world entirely separate from the rest of humanity. The gold-rimmed china, the crystal goblets, the silken tablecloths, all of it is designed to elevate them, to make them feel like royalty. And yet, as you sit down to the elaborate 10-course meal, you can't shake the feeling that beneath all the pomp and circumstance, there is something fragile about this world. It's a world of delicate social balances, a world built on appearances, on maintaining the illusion of perfection, the constant dance of conversation, the delicate art of reading one another's faces, the unspoken rules of etiquette that govern every gesture. These are the things that allow the world of Titanic to function. But beneath it all, there is an underlying truth. The world they inhabit is just as impermanent as the ocean itself. And yet, despite this awareness, there is a strange comfort in it all. Titanic's first-class dining room is a place of indulgence, a place where luxury reigns supreme, where every whim is catered to, where every course of the meal is prepared to perfection. You watch as the steward moves from table to table, his movements fluid and graceful, his hands steady as he places a dish before each passenger. The orchestra plays softly in the background, the music adding to the sense of elegance that permeates the space. It is easy to lose yourself in the luxury of it all, to be swept up in the beauty of the moment, to forget that outside the grand dining room, the vast ocean is a silent, unstoppable force, moving in rhythm with the ship, indifferent to the passengers inside. As the evening unfolds, you notice how the passengers seem to relax, their laughter growing louder, their conversation becoming more animated. The atmosphere, once formal and reserved, begins to shift as the wine flows and the rhythms of the evening set in. It's a familiar pattern, the gradual transition from formality to ease, from distant civility to the warmth of companionship. The guests, who moments ago were carefully managing their social positions, now seem more relaxed, more comfortable in their surroundings. The ship, with its grand dining room and glittering chandeliers, has worked its magic. It has transformed them into something more than just passengers. It has elevated them to something closer to royalty, to something untouchable. And yet, as you glance around the room, you realize that despite the elegance, despite the beauty of the surroundings, something is missing. The laughter, the conversation, the glinting of the chandeliers, these are all fleeting things, temporary things. In a world that feels so permanent, so unshakable, there is a constant undercurrent of unease, a subtle sense of inevitability. The passengers may bask in their luxury, may enjoy the finest wines and the most delicious dishes, but the ocean, with all its mystery, continues to wait, silently, just beyond the ship's walls. And beneath the surface of the meal, beneath the laughter and the wine, there is a quiet tension, a sense that this moment, like all moments, will soon pass. As the meal draws to a close, the orchestra plays one final waltz, a slow, haunting melody that seems to linger in the air long after the final notes have faded. The guests, their faces glowing with the warmth of good food and good company, rise from their tables, their movements languid and content. They file out into the lounge, where the night awaits, and where the rhythm of the evening will continue until the first light of dawn breaks through the windows. But for you, as you watch the passengers drift into the night, there is a sense of quiet reflection. The world they occupy, for all its grandeur, is but a fleeting moment in time. It is a world built on human ambition, on the desire to create something that lasts, something that endures. And yet, like all human creations, it is subject to the same forces that govern the rest of the world, the ocean, the sky, and the unstoppable march of time. As you step out into the cool night air, the stars above seem to shimmer more brightly than ever, as though they, too, are aware of the fragile nature of this world. The sea, stretching endlessly before you, holds its secrets close, but you can't help but feel its presence, its silent strength. And in that moment, you realize that while Titanic may be a marvel of human engineering, it is the ocean, vast, powerful, and eternal, that will ultimately decide her fate. The next morning dawns gently, the early light creeping through the portholes of the ship, casting a soft, golden hue over the polished wood and plush furnishings of your stateroom. The constant hum of the Titanic's engines vibrates beneath your feet as you stretch and rise. The silence of the early hour, offering a brief respite from the bustle of life aboard this floating palace. You find yourself once again caught in the delicate rhythm of shipboard life, where the lines between the grandiosity of human achievement and the subtle dominance of nature seem to blur with every passing day. As you prepare for the morning, the familiar ritual of dressing with the assistance of your maid, Emily, helps center your thoughts. The layers of clothing, the careful placement of jewelry, the delicate fastening of buttons, all feel like a performance, a representation of the roles each passenger plays aboard Titanic. The ship is a stage, and every morning begins a new act in the grand drama that will unfold over the course of this journey. You wonder, with a hint of unease, whether the characters aboard Titanic are truly aware of the role they are playing, or if they simply become consumed by it, forgetting the world beyond the ship's walls. Stepping into the dining room for breakfast, you are greeted by the now familiar scene. The room is bathed in soft morning light, and the passengers, still recovering from the previous evening's indulgence, sit with quiet airs of sophistication. The mood is lighter than the formalities of dinner, yet still heavy with the weight of social expectation. You take a seat at a small table near the window, taking in the beautiful view of the endless sea as it stretches out before you. The morning is cool, with a crisp breeze that speaks of the Atlantic's vastness. But inside the dining room, the air is thick with the smell of fresh bread, hot coffee, and delicate pastries. You look around and notice the various groups of passengers gathered here, each cocooned in their own private world, their conversations punctuated by the clinking of silverware and the occasional laughter. Mrs. Bishop, who had been so poised the night before, now appears slightly more weary, her expression tinged with the exhaustion of too many days spent in the midst of social expectations. She is surrounded by a few familiar faces, chatting quietly with the other women, her voice calm but her eyes scanning the room, as though seeking something she cannot quite name. Nearby, Mr. and Mrs. Widener are engaged in a quiet conversation, their heads bent together as they discuss the details of their upcoming business ventures in New York. There is an air of quiet authority around them, a sense of control that has followed them throughout their lives. And yet, despite their apparent success, there is something about them that feels out of place in this shipboard world of luxury and excess. It is as if their wealth and status, while impressive, are merely a veneer one that, if peeled back, might reveal something more vulnerable, more human beneath. As you sip your coffee and reflect on the various passengers around you, the hum of conversation fades into the background, and you are left with a sense of unease that you cannot quite shake. There is something about the collective atmosphere aboard Titanic, this feeling of being in a world apart, a world built on the illusion of perfection, that makes you wonder what is lurking just beneath the surface. In a place where nothing is ever quite what it seems, where every gesture is calculated and every word carefully chosen, how much of the true selves of these people remain hidden from view? The ship itself, as magnificent as it is, also begins to feel like a mirror, reflecting not just the grandeur of the human spirit, but the fragility of it as well. As the Titanic glides through the water, so too do the passengers glide through their interactions, carefully maneuvering between roles and expectations. But the sea outside, with its vast emptiness and its silent, ever-present power, serves as a reminder that no matter how perfectly this world has been constructed, it is still at the mercy of forces beyond its control. The passengers, for all their wealth and sophistication, are no different from the ship itself, impermanent, fragile, and vulnerable to the whims of fate. Later in the day, as the sun reaches its zenith and the ship continues its steady progress across the Atlantic, you find yourself once again on deck, walking slowly along the promenade, watching as the ocean stretches out into the distance. The gentle rocking of the ship beneath your feet creates a sensation of weightlessness, as though you are suspended between two worlds, the land behind you and the vast open sea before you. There are others on the deck as well, strolling in quiet solitude, lost in their own thoughts, or engaged in whispered conversations. Maggie, whom you've come to know over the past few days, is among them, her figure a striking silhouette against the backdrop of the ocean. She waves at you when she spots you from across the deck, her eyes sparkling with her characteristic energy and curiosity. You walk toward her, exchanging pleasantries as she motions for you to join her at the railing. "Isn't it magnificent?" she asks, her voice light but tinged with a quiet awe. There's something about the ocean that makes you feel small, doesn't there? Something about it that makes you realize how temporary we all are. You nod in agreement, your gaze fixed on the horizon. Yes, it's a strange feeling. So vast, so endless. And yet, here we are, surrounded by all this luxury, all this human achievement. It's as though we're trying to prove that we can conquer the sea, that we can bend it to our will. Maggie laughs softly, her eyes distant as she watches the waves crash against the side of the ship. "I think we've done a good job of it, haven't we? Titanic is a marvel, after all. But even she is no match for the ocean in the end. The sea is too big, too unpredictable. I suppose we just have to hope it's on our side." The thought lingers in your mind as you walk with Maggie along the deck, the two of you exchanging stories of the various passengers you've met in your time aboard the ship. Maggie, ever the observer, shares her sharp insights about the people around her, their behaviors, their little idiosyncrasies, and the way their social masks slip when they think no one is watching. "I think the one person who's truly comfortable here is Mrs. Astor," Maggie muses as you approach the stern of the ship. "She doesn't care about what anyone thinks. She's just here for herself, enjoying the journey for what it is. I respect that." "Do you think anyone else feels the same?" you ask, curious about her thoughts. Maggie shrugs, her gaze momentarily flickering to the horizon. "Not many, I think. Everyone aboard Titanic has something to prove, whether it's their wealth, their status, or their importance. It's all about image here, about maintaining appearances. It's exhausting, really." The conversation shifts to lighter topics as you continue to walk, but the underlying tension that Maggie has so astutely described continues to pulse in the back of your mind. The passengers aboard Titanic are not just visitors to this grand vessel. They are participants in an elaborate performance, each one playing their role to perfection. But beneath that performance lies a quiet fear, fear of failure, fear of being exposed, fear of being found wanting in this world where everything must be perfect, everything must be flawless. Later that evening, as you gather with the other passengers for another lavish dinner, the same sense of unease lingers in the air. The social dance begins again, the polite smiles, the well-placed compliments, the subtle power dynamics that shape every conversation. As you settle into your seat at the table, you can't help but notice how carefully everyone is positioned, how every word and gesture is measured. The entire dining room seems to be in a constant state of performance, with every person trying to outdo the other, to stand out, to be remembered. You wonder if they realize that, in the end, it is the ship itself that will remain long after they are gone. The Titanic, for all its grandeur and opulence, will become a symbol of human ambition, a monument to what we can create, and a reminder of what we cannot control. The guests aboard Titanic may come and go, but the ship will endure, a testament to the best and worst of humanity, to the delicate balance between creation and destruction, between achievement and failure. As the Titanic continues to slice through the waters of the Atlantic, an eerie stillness pervades the ship. The hum of the engines, ever present beneath your feet, is now accompanied by a slight but noticeable quiver in the air, as though the ship itself is aware of its significance. Perhaps it's the weight of the moment, or maybe it's the collective tension building among the passengers, but it feels as if time itself has slowed. Life aboard Titanic is a carefully orchestrated dance, but beneath the surface, you can feel the undercurrents of something else, something darker, something heavier that no one dares to acknowledge. Each morning, the passengers shuffle through their routines with almost mechanical precision. Breakfast in the dining saloon, where the rich aroma of freshly baked pastries and strong coffee fills the air. The polite murmurs of conversation, each word seemingly carefully calculated to maintain the illusion of civility. There's no room for vulnerability or doubt in this world, where each person is meticulously dressed in the finest garments, their manners as polished as the silverware that glistens on the table. And yet, beneath this facade, there's a quiet restlessness. You can feel it in the way the passengers eye each other, sizing one another up in the reflections of crystal glasses and polished wood. You can feel it in the way the crew moves, with a touch more urgency, the subtle whispers of something unsettling beneath the hum of their conversations. Maggie, ever observant, seems to pick up on the same shift in atmosphere. She's been quieter than usual, her usual spark dimmed just slightly, as though she too can sense the tension growing aboard the ship. You've come to respect her keen intuition, her ability to navigate the social maze of Titanic's first-class society with ease. But today, she seems distracted. Her eyes frequently scan the room, her fingers tapping restlessly on the edge of her coffee cup, as if the act of waiting for something, anything, to happen is more than she can bear. "You feel it too, don't you?" she finally says, leaning toward you across the table, her voice barely above a whisper. You glance around the room, taking in the elegance and luxury that surrounds you, and for the first time, the opulence of it all feels almost hollow. The chatter that fills the space sounds increasingly meaningless, as if the people around you are performing, acting out their roles with increasing desperation. The distance between them, the isolation they feel despite the proximity, is palpable. You nod slowly, your gaze drifting to the far corner of the dining room where a group of prominent socialites, led by Mrs. Widener, is deep in conversation. There's a strange energy today, you admit, glancing at Maggie. It feels as though something is about to break, though none of us can say exactly what. Maggie's lips curl into a wry smile, but her eyes remain distant. Yes, it's as though everyone aboard is trying to maintain control over their little corner of the world, as though they're afraid of losing themselves in this floating microcosm. You've got the Wideners trying to assert their dominance over their table, Mrs. Bishop fawning over every word Mr. Guggenheim says, and all the while, no one dares to speak of what we're all really thinking. What are we thinking? You ask quietly, intrigued by the subtext in her words. That all of this, she gestures vaguely to the luxurious surroundings, can vanish in an instant, that we're living on borrowed time, and we're just too afraid to admit it. Her words hang in the air between you like a heavy cloud, and for the first time, you feel a shiver run down your spine that has nothing to do with the temperature. Titanic, for all its magnificence, has become a gilded cage, a sanctuary that promises safety and security but is slowly revealing its cracks. The passengers, for all their wealth, their status, and their self-assuredness, are trapped in a delicate web of pretense. Each interaction, each polite exchange of pleasantries, is a thread that binds them to this illusion of perfection. They have created a world of their own aboard Titanic, one that shields them from the harsh realities, outside realities of politics, war, and the very human vulnerabilities they've spent their lives trying to ignore. As the day progresses, the ship's movements become more pronounced. The gentle sway that once seemed comforting now feels ominous, as though the Titanic is preparing to reveal its true nature. The sea, once a vast expanse of endless possibility, now seems more like an inescapable force, a constant reminder of the danger that lurks beyond the ship's walls. You can almost feel the ocean pulling at the hull of the Titanic, as though it is beckoning the ship to test its limits, to challenge the fragile balance between man-made ambition and the raw power of nature. The passengers remain blissfully unaware of the mounting tension, their lives unfolding in small, carefully controlled moments. But there is an underlying current that runs through every conversation, every glance exchanged between passengers. It is the knowledge, however unspoken, that life aboard Titanic is finite, that the ship will reach its destination, but in doing so, something must change. And that change, that inevitable shift, looms closer with every passing moment. That evening, as the Titanic approaches another majestic sunset, you find yourself on the upper deck once again, lost in thought. The sky is a riot of colors, orange, pink, and gold, painting the horizon in hues that seem too beautiful to be real. The ship moves steadily through the water, cutting through the waves with a grace that belies its size, its enormity. The passengers have gathered once again to watch this breathtaking spectacle, to lose themselves in the beauty of the moment, to pretend just for a little while that they are masters of the world, untouchable by the forces of nature. You glance around the deck, noticing the familiar faces. Mrs. Astor, now a little more relaxed in the company of others, her quiet dignity undiminished by the gossipy whispers that seemed to follow her everywhere. Mr. Guggenheim, his usual entourage of business associates and companions clustered around him, each of them laughing a little too loudly, their voices rising in a clear attempt to drown out the thoughts that surely weigh heavily on their minds. And of course, the Wideners, seated at a corner of the deck, their conversation a mixture of business and social posturing, as though the world beyond the ship does not exist. "Are you enjoying the view?" a voice calls out, and you turn to find Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, standing beside you, a soft smile on his lips. "Yes," you reply, your voice a little more subdued than usual. "It's breathtaking, isn't it? But it's hard to shake the feeling that we're all just passing through, like we're adrift on this ocean, caught in between two worlds." Andrews's smile falters slightly, and for a moment, his eyes appear far away, lost in some distant memory. "Yes," he says quietly, "I suppose we all are. Even the Titanic, in all its grandeur, is just a passing thing. It will eventually fade into history, just like every ship before her. And all we can do is ride the waves as best we can." There is something about his words that strikes you, something profound in the simplicity of his observation. The Titanic, for all its technological marvels, is still a vessel built by human hands, subject to the same forces that govern the rest of the world. It is a reflection of human ambition, an attempt to master the sea, to conquer the natural world, and to create something lasting, something that will endure. But the ocean, with its infinite vastness and unpredictable power, serves as a reminder that nothing is truly permanent, not even the Titanic. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deck, the mood aboard the ship shifts once again. The passengers, still caught in their social dance, begin to make their way toward the dining saloon for the evening's meal. You, too, begin to move toward the entrance, but before you can reach the stairs, a steward approaches, his expression apologetic. "Excuse me, madam," he says, bowing slightly. "There's a message for you from Mr. Guggenheim. He requests your company after dinner for a brief conversation in the Café Parisien." You nod, somewhat surprised by the invitation but willing to indulge the request. Mr. Guggenheim, for all his aloofness, has been nothing but courteous to you during your time aboard the Titanic. As you make your way to the dining saloon, you reflect on the strange dynamics of this voyage, the way the passengers, despite their wealth and status, are all bound together by this shared experience, each of them navigating the same waters, both literal and metaphorical, as they drift toward an unknown future. Dinner is as lavish as always, a carefully orchestrated affair that seems to unfold in slow motion. The courses come and go: oysters, consommé, salmon, followed by a rich beef Wellington and a delicate sorbet to cleanse the palate. Each dish is accompanied by an expertly chosen wine, poured by the attentive waitstaff. The conversation, as always, revolves around the trivialities of social life, news from home, rumors about other passengers, gossip about the crew. But beneath the surface, there's a palpable sense of anticipation, a feeling that everyone is waiting for something, waiting for the next wave to crash, waiting for the moment when this fragile world will shatter. After dinner, you make your way to the Café Parisien, the intimate space that has become a favored spot for the ship's elite. The soft music of a string quartet fills the air, adding to the sense of elegance and refinement that defines this space. Mr. Guggenheim is already seated at a small table near the window, a glass of brandy in hand. He stands as you approach, offering you a seat with a graceful gesture. "Good evening, madam," he says, his voice warm but tinged with an unmistakable air of formality. "I trust you had a pleasant dinner?" You nod, taking your seat across from him. "Yes, thank you. The food was exquisite, as always." He smiles, his eyes glinting with a knowing look. "I'm glad to hear that, but I must admit, I didn't ask you here to discuss the menu. There's something I wanted to speak to you about, a matter of some importance." The weight of his words is not lost on you. You lean forward slightly, intrigued by the sudden shift in tone. "What is it, Mr. Guggenheim?" He takes a slow sip from his glass before answering, his gaze steady but filled with something you can't quite place. "I've heard rumors aboard the ship, rumors of unrest, of passengers beginning to feel the pressure of being confined in such a space for so long. It's inevitable, of course, when you put so many people together in such close quarters. But I wanted to ask, what do you make of it?" You pause, considering his question carefully. The tension you've felt on board, the undercurrent of unease, the sense that something is amiss, it's all been bubbling beneath the surface, just waiting to break free. But to acknowledge it openly is another thing entirely. "I think," you begin slowly, "that people are beginning to feel the weight of their own expectations, their own desires. This ship, for all its grandeur, is a vessel of isolation. We're all trapped in our roles, playing our parts in this great social performance. But I think some of us are beginning to question whether it's enough, whether this world we've built aboard the Titanic is enough to sustain us." Ender. Guggenheim looks at you intently, as though searching for some deeper meaning in your words. "Perhaps," he says softly, But perhaps the real question is whether any of us will be able to hold on to our illusions once we reach the end of this journey. There's a moment of silence between you, a heavy pause that seems to stretch on forever. The ship continues to glide through the water, undeterred by the waves that crash against its hull. And yet, despite the calm surface, you both know that beneath it all, the tides are changing. Something is coming, something that will alter the course of everything aboard the Titanic. And perhaps, just perhaps, it is not the passengers who are the masters of this ship, but the sea itself. As the final hours of the Titanic's journey stretch before them, the passengers continue to experience life aboard the ship as though it were a dream, a fleeting moment where time has somehow slowed down and all their aspirations, desires, and anxieties have been crystallized into the shimmering reflection of this vessel. Titanic, in all its magnificent splendor, has become the very embodiment of their most treasured illusions, the illusions of invulnerability, control, and permanence. But as with all things in life, this sense of security is fragile. Beneath the carefully constructed surfaces of wealth, luxury, and privilege, there lies a powerful undercurrent that none of the passengers can ignore, though most of them try. The very ocean that surrounds them, vast and unknowable, has already started to claim its dominance, silently asserting its timeless power. The night before the tragedy unfolds is, in many ways, the epitome of Titanic's greatest contradiction. The passengers, blissfully unaware of what fate has in store for them, continue their lives as though the ship is a microcosm that exists outside of time and space. They attend lavish dinners, dance beneath the grand chandeliers of the reception room, and stroll along the boat deck as the waves lapping at the sides of the ship echo the rhythm of their lives. They have created a world of their own aboard this grand ship, one that is disconnected from the hardships and realities of the world beyond. Here, they can hide behind their wealth, their social standing, their tailored suits, and their beaded gowns. Here, they can pretend that nothing can touch them. The ship, with its cutting-edge technology, is a fortress, a promise of safety that promises to carry them smoothly from one world to another, from Southampton to New York. But as with every journey in life, the unknown always lies ahead, beyond the horizon. The sea, as a constant and watchful presence, is both a creator and a destroyer. It offers the illusion of tranquility with its vast expanse of water, so serene and smooth at times that one could almost forget it is a force unto itself. But beneath its surface, the ocean is a relentless force, one that cannot be tamed by human hands, no matter how grand the ship, no matter how meticulously crafted the interiors, no matter how many luxuries it offers to its passengers. The ship, despite its promises of safety and invulnerability, is vulnerable to the same forces that govern the tides of nature. Nature is indifferent to the human desires for comfort, control, and stability. And in this realization lies the tragedy of Titanic. A tragedy not merely of a ship sinking, but of an entire world crumbling in an instant, exposing the human condition in its most raw, vulnerable state. The passengers, too, represent this paradox. They are at once the creators and destroyers of their own illusions. The wealthy elite who spend their days in rich conversation, surrounded by the luxuries that money can buy, all find themselves, by the end of the journey, united in their helplessness against the power of nature. Whether they are the powerful businessmen, the genteel ladies, or the dignitaries and socialites who thought themselves impervious to life's misfortunes, they share one inescapable reality: they are all equally vulnerable in the face of the uncontrollable forces of nature. The sinking of Titanic, though it is a catastrophic and literal event, becomes a metaphor for the fragility of human life. It is a reminder that no matter how far humanity has come in its conquest of the natural world, it is always subject to the whims of fate. In the final moments of their journey, the passengers who have built their lives aboard Titanic are forced to confront the fact that the world they have carefully constructed is an illusion. The grand ballrooms, the shining dinner plates, the soft melodies of the orchestra, all these symbols of wealth and status cannot save them now. They are left only with the realization that, in the grand scheme of the universe, they are no more significant than the tiny specks of dust that drift on the wind, caught in the vastness of a never-ending sea. For some, this realization is overwhelming. For others, it is a quiet acceptance. But for all of them, the experience is profound and unavoidably transformative. The sea does not care for status, wealth, or reputation. It claims all in equal measure. As the ship begins its tragic descent into the icy depths of the Atlantic, each passenger experiences a shift in perspective. In the face of death, the things that once mattered, the outward appearances, the social standings, the petty rivalries and conflicts fade away into the background. The true essence of their humanity is revealed not in the luxury they have accumulated, but in the choices they make in those final moments. Some will fight to the bitter end, clinging to life with all their might, unwilling to surrender to the forces that have claimed the ship. Others will find a strange sense of peace, accepting that there is nothing they can do to change their fate. For others still, the weight of their privilege becomes a burden, one that they cannot escape in the face of the inevitable. The tragedy of Titanic is a reflection of humanity's eternal struggle against its own limitations. It is a story of ambition and hubris, of the triumph of human achievement and the sudden realization of its fragility. For all its grandeur, for all its innovation and technological marvels, Titanic is just another ship, one that has, tragically, met its match in the boundless and unyielding ocean. The ship that was meant to conquer the seas now lies beneath them, a silent testament to human pride and the limits of control. But in this final act of destruction, there is also a moment of transcendence. As the passengers face the terror of the sinking, many will find moments of clarity, moments of connection with those around them, even in the midst of chaos and fear. The rigid social structures that once governed their lives are suddenly irrelevant. The distinctions between the rich and the poor, the powerful and the powerless, dissolve in the face of shared vulnerability. In these final moments, they are all equal before the vast, indifferent sea. In their collective humanity, in their shared fear, pain, and hope, they become part of something greater than themselves. The ship may be sinking, but in this moment of surrender, they are released from the illusions that have kept them bound to the world they have known. They are free to face the unknown without pretense, stripped of the masks they have worn for so long. The aftermath of Titanic's sinking is not just a tragedy for the passengers and crew who lost their lives, but for the world that witnessed it. The shockwaves of the disaster rippled through society, shattering the illusion that humans had conquered nature. The Titanic, a symbol of human achievement and progress, became a symbol of human vulnerability and the capriciousness of fate. The world would never be the same again. It would be a world where the grandeur of human creation could no longer shield anyone from the forces of nature that could reduce all that had been built to rubble in an instant. For those who survived the disaster, the journey became one of reflection and rebirth. They would carry the memory of that night with them for the rest of their lives, an indelible mark on their souls. The survivors were forced to reckon with the deep existential truths the disaster had revealed. The fragility of life, the illusion of control, the need to reconcile ambition with humility. Titanic was no longer just a ship, it was a mirror held up to the face of humanity, showing not just our greatest achievements but our most profound vulnerabilities. As time passed, the Titanic disaster would become one of history's most poignant reminders of the limits of human ambition. It would serve as a cautionary tale for generations to come, urging society to look beyond its own sense of security and to acknowledge the overwhelming forces that govern the world. The legacy of Titanic, however tragic, would live on as a testament to the delicate balance between man's will to conquer the natural world and the humbling realization that we are all subject to forces far beyond our comprehension. In the end, Titanic's story is not just one of a ship, but of the larger human condition. It is a story about life's inherent uncertainties, about the journey we all make through the world, and about the ultimate question of how we respond to the unknown. We all sail aboard ships of our own, navigating through calm waters and stormy seas, and the question that lingers in the air, as it did aboard Titanic, is not about how we will survive, but how we will live in the face of the inevitable. The ship may sink, the waters may rise, but the choices we make in those moments, the moments that define us, are what give meaning to the journey. And so, as we look back at the sinking of Titanic, we are reminded of the fragility of human life, the impermanence of all that we hold dear, and the ultimate mystery that surrounds us all. Titanic's legacy is not one of doom, but of profound truth. It teaches us that, in the grand scheme of the universe, we are but a fleeting moment. But in that moment, we are capable of great things, both terrible and beautiful. In the end, we are not defined by the ships we build or the wealth we amass, but by the courage with which we face the unknowable vastness that lies ahead.